You need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. We need more dogs.
Don't sleep on them Lions. Nobody's sleeping on the Lions anymore. I have a question about the Detroit Lions.
Shoot.
A lot of bad seasons for them, right? Like, if you're our age as a Detroit Lions fans, you had
Bless your heart.
You had a year or two with Stafford and Megatron where you thought you had some chances there. A couple of double-digit win seasons, not a whole lot of success outside of that. And then in the past 5 years, just absolute dumpster fire. Then about 3 years ago, they really start turning it around. But say you're 35 years old as a Lions fan, never really seen success. Is last year the worst year as a Lions fan at 35 years old? Or was the regular season success enough to be grateful? Because they lost to a team they should have beat by 30.
I mean, it would have to hurt. I can't speak from experience, but I will say from my experience as a Bears fan, the only time it has approached where I would rather have the bad team than the good team that loses in the playoffs is when they lost the Super Bowl. That's the only one that I even have the question of, because the others are just like, I'd rather have fun all year, but like losing the Super Bowl, that hurt.
I mean, they were the favorite to come out of the NFC, even going into the playoffs, even with how red hot the Eagles were. Like, it's different. The Bears there were probably 3 other teams right there pretty even with them when they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Colts.
They were pretty much the cream of the NFC. Like, they were the top of the NFC that year.
Were they the favorites? I don't know. But, I mean, they could
have
been.
They weren't, but like by the end of the year,
yeah.
Clear.
As a Cowboys fan for majority of my life, there's plenty of times where we got the 1 seed and absolutely shit the bed, so I know how it feels 1,000%. It fucking sucks.
Yeah. But let's get into this situation for the Lions a little. Their offseason changes. I mean, Ben Johnson gone. Their defense coordinator gone. Now the head coach of the Jets. Ben Johnson now the head coach of the Bears. The last time we saw a staff purged like that was the Eagles after their first Super Bowl run where they lost to the Chiefs, and the Eagles struggled that next year. Like, they started off red hot and then they lost like 6 straight.
Yep, struggled very much so. And that's kind of what brings into question Dan Campbell, the question that's, I guess, kind of been asked since he got hired. Is he a good head coach, or is he good at hiring other coaches to surround him? I think in Philadelphia, Sirianni is good at hiring a staff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's proven that. And I'm not saying he's not a good head coach, because shit, that's half your job is putting a good staff around you. I'll give credit where credit's due there. And we'll see if Campbell has the eye for talent. And people in Detroit seem to be pretty excited about this OC they got coming up. So we'll see.
It was a surprise too. Like, there was talk about Hank Fraley maybe becoming OC. There was talk about another guy who ended up going to New York becoming OC. It was kind of surprising that this was their choice to be OC. I don't know a ton of details about him, but it'll be interesting. And I think Dan Campbell is a hell of a head coach. I think Dan Campbell sets a tone that's hard to ignore. And like, I think no matter what, even if there are schematic issues, this team's going to be feisty and probably a playoff team. Like, they're too talented and too well coached to not.
Yeah. So when you look at this team, you look at the talent, and they're just littered with talent. I mean, looking at the 2-headed monster in the backfield between Gibbs and Montgomery, I mean, it really doesn't get better than that in the NFL today. Even after losing a couple of guys in the offensive line, I'll still take this O-line against just about anybody. Bookended by Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell is just an absolute monster.
Losing Frank Ragnow is huge, though, because he made the line calls, and he was probably one of the most versatile centers in the NFL from the run game perspective.
Yeah, but I mean, I trust this offensive line. I like having 2 veteran tackles out there, especially when one of them's Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
Sam LaPorta has been an absolute monster from the jump since they drafted him. And then obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown catches every ball that comes his way. Just an absolute energizer bunny. Just a hell of a player. Just a guy that you want playing wide receiver for a gritty team like this. And then JMO came on strong last year. If JMO takes a step up this year, I mean, he's going to take over the number one wide receiver on this team, which I don't think would be a bad thing at all. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown as a compliment, I think, is even better version of Amon-Ra St. Brown than ASB as a one, honestly.
Yeah.
So if JMO can really take that next step, I mean, Jared Goff, MVP.
I do have questions with Goff without Ben Johnson.
The only question I have is how many MVPs will he win?
I don't think he's going to fall back to the place where he was before he got to Detroit.
When he was going to Super Bowls?
No, in between then. Like the last few years in LA when it got kind of ugly and his mental game was just really messed up.
Always hating on my guy.
It was. He admits it. He talks about it very openly. So I mean, I think that he's older. He's really an adult now and understands how to process the failures and be able to use those to get better. So I do think that he will be better than he was when he first got to Detroit, but I do think he will take a slight step back without Ben Johnson.
Maybe. I think they're going to run the ball more without Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
I think they're going to lean on the running game. So I don't know if it's Jared Goff taking a step back or they just don't lean on him as much. But you get these two running backs going, I don't care who the quarterback is. When you have guys like Jameson Williams, Sam LaPorta, Tim Patrick, and Amon-Ra St. Brown out there, I could throw it to these guys after Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery ran for 27 times in the first half.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Penny Sewell is the best run blocker in the NFL in my mind. Like, so that is all the reason right there. Tate Ratledge is going to get nasty in the trenches no matter what. I'm not sure if it'll be Ratledge or Glasgow at center, but one of those two will be there. And then Christian Mahogany will be interesting to watch for me because he only played a few games last year, but he was really good in those few games. I didn't love his tape coming out of Boston College. I thought he was a little too hectic, too all over the place, and to just like, I don't want to say too violent because you want violence, but like it felt like he was sacrificing reps to be violent, and I just wasn't sure about that. But frankly, the way I evaluate offensive linemen has kind of changed in the last year, and if it was in this year's draft, I probably would have liked him a lot more than I did when he was coming out. So
Christian Mahogany sounds like a candle they would sell at like a Bible store.
Sounds like a parish that sells wood.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, this O-line in general, they should be able to move the football on the ground. Let's get to the defense here.
Quick defense. Okay. Alim McNeill, absolute game changer. And if that dude can stay healthy, I mean, he's one of the best run-stuffing defensive tackles in all of football. And then Aidan Hutchinson having a defensive player of the year type of year before he goes down. I mean, this team was just riddled with injuries last year. On a defense that was young and emerging, maybe not quite to the level they wanted to be yet, but you could see the growth, and it just seemed like week after week after week they were losing guys. And I feel like this defense might be one of the most underrated defenses in the league if they can stay healthy going into this season. What are your thoughts on that?
This D-line is nasty.
Yeah, Marcus Davenport's huge.
Nasty. I mean, I don't even care. I don't give a shit about Marcus Davenport. Like, if you can get 3 games out of him, amen, right? But like,
amen.
Aidan Hutchinson, Alim McNeill, DJ Reader, Tyleik Williams. That is filthy. I love Tyleik coming out of Ohio State. Dude is a brick house. So you have him and DJ Reader in there on running downs. I don't know how you run the football against those two. Alim McNeill's a good run defender on his own, and like they can.
Dan Campbell's son, Jackless, right there, linebacker.
Wait, what?
Said Dan Campbell's son, Jackless.
Yeah. But so, I mean, I love this defensive line. I'm curious to see how Aidan Hutchinson recovers from the injury because there were some questions about whether he was.
They were talking about him playing in the Super Bowl, and then like what he got released to resume football activities like 3 weeks ago. We're in May, and he's just
there was a video that came out, and people were saying like he looks slow, and I don't know, I didn't really feel that way, but like
they said that about everybody. They said that about Fat Debo.
Yeah, well, Debo did look slow, but
Debo's always slow. He just runs you.
Yeah,
he just
that
runs
was
through
kind
you.
of my thought with it. Like, I don't know.
When has Debo ever looked fast?
He is than he was.
But
But
he just freaking runs through you.
Linebackers, I mean, Alex Anzalone has really become a really nice player for them. I had my doubts about him in the past, but like he's really stepped up from the leadership standpoint, from the football IQ standpoint. He plays a really sound game, and Jack Campbell started to come into his own last year. I think he is going to be taking over as the lead linebacker this year on that defense. And then year 2, Terry and Arnold, adding DJ Reed. I like this corner.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Terry and Arnold does. He was one of my favorite rookies in the draft last year. And then maybe we'll see a little bit more out of Rakestraw. I know you were big on him coming out of Missouri last year.
I liked him a good amount. I mean, I think that he was a steal where they got him. I didn't watch enough of him to love him.
Loved him. All right.
Always with the hyperbole.
I think your Bears fans are starting to pile in. We just jumped up about 15 viewers.
All right. Well, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up this Detroit talk. What are we thinking here, Jay?
You know me. You know how much I love the Detroit Lions. I've been the biggest proponent of the Detroit Lions over the last 5 years. You can't find a bigger Detroit fan than me. With that said,
the number 1 Detroit Lions podcast on earth.
With that said, I'm taking over 10.5 wins at plus 105, and I'm sprinkling the Super Bowl at 10-1. I don't care about the OC, the DC. Give me the only thing that matters, and that's Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, baby.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the over 10.5 at plus 105. I don't love it just because I do think they will go through some turbulence with the coaching changes and Goff being without Ben Johnson now. But ultimately, I think this team, like out of these bets here, that's the one that makes sense. Danny, if you had to bet any of these in the lower left-hand corner, what are you thinking for the Detroit Lions?
I mean, if you want the safest money, I think the playoffs at minus 205 is pretty much the safest money. But I, like you were saying, Q, I really like the over 10.5 for wins. I think people are really not overblowing, but misconstruing like what the coordinators mean. Like Dan Campbell is still there. The team is still really, really good. Like Brad Holmes does the feeling himself thing in the draft a little bit. We saw it again this year with Isaac Tesla and like the 3rd round at wide receiver, which was like, you're out of your damn fool mind. But, you know.
But then he gets a guy in Miles Frazier at 171 who I thought was a 3rd round talent. Like, so I'm like, so okay, I guess it works.
Like, yeah, I guess
Hassanan was a good talent too.
But like, I think we've passed the point of Dan Campbell should be doubted kind of thing. He's earned the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion. I think 10-1 on the Super Bowl is nuts just because the Lions still have a Jared Goff problem. And this isn't me besmirching.
No, come on now.
Jay is
I won't stand for it.
Number 1 fan.
Oh, you can be alone on your boat.
Top 5 quarterback.
You're out of your mind.
Top
5 quarterback.
How many Super Bowls have your quarterback?
Who are the 4? Wait, who are you dropping off the typical top 5? Are you dropping Herbo?
Who?
Herbert?
Oh, just
Herbert? Herbert may be a top 32 quarterback in this league.
Oh, my God.
You're also talking to the number 1 Justin Herbert hater on earth.
Yeah, they coincide.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.